Term 3 edition of video tutorial. Now what we're looking at today is something we did in a workshop in class. I just thought I'd reinforce it for people who are still a bit, confused, I guess. And that's analysing, being specific when you're analysing the effect of a single persuasive technique or sentence. Now I drew this diagram that you can see here for a reason. You've got to remember this when you analyse stuff, right? So you've got a whole persuasive text, all right? Let's say, for example, in our case, the beauty pageants article. And whenever you look at a whole text, you've got to understand the author's contention or what they're saying, and of course that feeds into the issue. For example, with our beauty pageants, the issue is all the controversy that surrounds these beauty pageants, just generally. And our author's contention is that, in this modern era of political correctness, people are taking this way too far. A beauty pageant is just about how beautiful someone is. The rest, all this other stuff's ridiculous. Now, that's what you got to keep in the back of your mind. Then you pick out your single technique or sentence, right? And you've got to analyse the intended effect of that, of the techniques that are in that sentence or what's going on. Because, to be honest, as I've told you, it wouldn't be in there if, it was a waste of time. Now, what you got to remember is that this intended effect will be certainly related to the author's contention and the issue. Right? So if you don't make a note that relates to these two things when you're talking about the intended effect of these techniques, then you're not doing it right. That's the difference between being specific and vague. A vague response will only talk about, this technique affects the reader in this way. Whereas a very specific response will say, the author has chosen to use these techniques to create this kind of effect on the reader, which will make them think this certain thing about the issue or the contention that they're putting forward. Now, I've written up an example response, and there's nothing new to people who did the workshop. In the article, stupidity is never a good look, as beauty pageants show, insert paper and date, written by author. The point of view is that people expect far too much from beauty pageants, right? That's the overall point of view. The sentence that I'm going to analyse is that the controversy that followed would have you believe she slaughtered a puppy on stage. Okay? This is what I would call a specific response, and please feel free to tell me I'm wrong on this one. Panahi is using hyperbola, analogy, and graphic imagery to convince the audience that the widespread controversy that followed Carrie Prejean expressing her belief in traditional marriages was an extreme overreaction. The reason for doing this is to drive home the point to drive home the point to show the reader how ridiculous it was to ask for an honest opinion from a contestant and then condemn her for it. That is a fairly strong support for Panahi's stance that these beauty pageants should just be about beauty. Let's be real about this. Right? You can't ask someone for their opinion, someone who is there for beauty reasons, and then have a crack at them for giving their opinion honestly and in a manner that Panahi felt was well spoken and reasonable. Right, a vague analysis would look something along the lines of this one here, and this is what a lot of people are still caught in the trap of doing. Right, we want to be doing this, not this. Panahi is using hyperbola, analogy, and graphic imagery to give the reader an exaggerated mental image to reinforce that the controversy was an overreaction. Right, that's too vague. In fact, I've seen some responses that don't even have this part. Right? The bit I've underlined there is relating somewhat to the overall contention. I've seen plenty of responses that just go, these are the techniques that are being used and this is what they're doing. And it doesn't relate to the point of the article at all. So that's the best way, I think, to go about analysing a specific technique. I hope you found it useful.